Look, if we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will. And I'm not letting that happen. If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will take Greenland. And I am not going to let that happen.
Is there any deal they can offer you?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to make a deal with them. It's easier. But one way or the other, we're going to have Greenland.
Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has warned that her country is facing a defining crossroads over the future of Greenland after U.S. President Donald Trump once again raised the prospect of taking control of the Arctic territory, including by force. Speaking ahead of meetings in Washington, D.C., focused on the intensifying global competition for critical raw materials, Frederiksen said the situation had evolved into a broader geopolitical confrontation rather than a narrow territorial dispute. This is a decisive moment, Frederiksen said during a debate with leaders of Denmark's political parties, arguing that the stakes now extend far beyond Greenland alone. In a separate statement posted on Facebook, she said Denmark was prepared to defend its values wherever required, including in the Arctic. She stressed that Copenhagen remains committed to international law and to the principle that people have the right to determine their own future. Frederiksen's remarks came as Germany and Sweden publicly aligned themselves with Denmark following Trump's renewed rhetoric. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson sharply criticized Washington's language after Trump said the United States would do something on Greenland whether they like it or not. Speaking at a defense conference in Salin, attended by NATO's top U.S. general, Kristersson said Sweden, the Nordic and Baltic countries, and several major European states stood firmly behind Denmark. He warned that a U.S. takeover of Greenland would violate international law and could set a dangerous precedent, encouraging similar actions elsewhere.
The US administration's threatening rhetoric towards Denmark and Greenland is simultaneously and rightly met with very sharp criticism. Sweden, the Nordic countries, the Baltic states, and several large European nations are jointly standing up for our Danish friends. Instead, the United States ought to be expressing gratitude to Denmark, which throughout all these years has proven to be a truly loyal ally.
Germany also reiterated its backing for Denmark and Greenland ahead of diplomatic discussions in Washington. German Foreign Minister Johann Wadefuhl met his Icelandic counterpart in Reykjavik to discuss what Berlin described as the growing strategic challenges of the far north.
It is absolutely clear the fate of Greenland will be decided by the people of Greenland themselves and by the Kingdom of Denmark, to whose sovereign territory Greenland belongs. The principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the inviolability of borders, as enshrined in the UN Charter, must be upheld. German soldiers as a security guarantee in go and possibly become militarily active. Is NATO then at an end? And is the sale? All questions that pertain to the security situation in the Arctic region must, of course, be discussed within the NATO framework. And we are doing that. And there is always a readiness to discuss this openly within the alliance. I am very pleased that my colleague Rubio has now also announced that he will discuss such questions with the government of the Kingdom of Denmark. That is certainly sensible and worthy of support. And even today, I read that President Trump has once again clearly committed himself to NATO. The United States stands for the defense of the alliance and also for its alliance with Europe. We are doing everything to ensure this alliance continues to be successful. I have not the slightest doubt that we stand together very closely and that this alliance will remain exactly what it always was, the most successful defense alliance. It is a defensive alliance that exists anywhere in the world.
Wadefuhl said security in the Arctic was becoming increasingly vital and was a shared concern within NATO, echoing similar sentiments expressed by Icelandic Foreign Minister Þorgerður Katrín Gunnarsdóttir.
The federal government currently has little desire to further verbally escalate this situation. Therefore, I will stick to the statements I have just made. I can only warn against us getting carried away into apocalyptic scenarios. There is a clear commitment to Denmark's territorial and sovereign integrity.
Denmark has our full and complete support. Our coordination is very close. Yesterday's statement proves this, and you can be sure that in the coming days, a very, very close exchange with Denmark will continue.
I refuse now to comment on any scenario you might think of concerning the USA, especially against an apocalyptic backdrop. And that's why I believe in the stationing intentions of the Americans in Germany and the security policy support for our interests. Currently, I have no doubts. Even the American declarations regarding European policy are in their military dimension, at least for us not to be called into question.
Concerns about Arctic security have also prompted discussions among NATO allies. Britain's Telegraph newspaper reported that military leaders from the UK and other European nations were examining options for a possible NATO mission in Greenland. According to the report, early talks have involved the UK, Germany, France, and others, and could include the deployment of troops, warships, and aircraft to counter perceived threats from Russia and China. UK Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander told Sky News that such discussions were routine, given the Arctic's growing geopolitical importance. Trump has repeatedly argued that Greenland is vital to U.S. national security, citing increased Russian and Chinese military activity in the Arctic. Asked whether he had made a formal offer to Denmark or Greenland, Trump said he had not, but insisted Greenland should make a deal with Washington to avoid falling under rival influence. He dismissed Denmark's defensive capabilities, claiming Greenland's security was minimal, and said the United States needed full ownership rather than a temporary arrangement.
But Greenland should make the deal because Greenland does not want to see Russia or China take over. They don't go there. It's very far away from Greenland. And Greenland, basically, their defense is 2 dog sleds. Do you know that? You know what their defense is? 2 dog sleds. In the meantime, you have Russian destroyers and submarines and China destroyers and submarines all over the place. We're not going to let that happen.
In the meantime, are you?
And if it affects NATO, then it affects NATO. But, you know, they need us much more than we need them. I will tell you that right now.
Super safe.
Greenland, which was a Danish colony until 1953 and gained home rule in 1979, remains an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. While debates over eventual independence continue, polls consistently show Greenlanders strongly oppose becoming part of the United States. Copenhagen has repeatedly stated that Greenland is not for sale, underscoring the growing transatlantic rift sparked by Trump's renewed push.